Okay, so we're no, well, I was gonna say we're live, but we're recording.
We're live, sort of.
We're live
We're
at this
alive.
recording. We're alive. There you go.
Well, hi, I'm Thea Touchton,
I'm Alvaro Gonzalez.
and we're Swinito Media.
Oh, I feel like I missed the harmony on that one. That
Okay,
would have
okay,
been
here we
cool.
go,
Okay,
here
let's try it again. One,
we go.
two, three. We're Swanito
Swinito
Media.
Media.
Well,
We'll
we
get him one day.
tried.
We'll get him
That's
one
what
day.
matters.
Yeah, our logo is better. Just to watch that. Anyway, yeah. So we'll take question number one. How did our love for the horror genre begin?
You wanna start
I'll go
off?
for sure. So I watched it when I was 8 and it terrified me. And then probably with like the influence of Tim Burton on my childhood and stuff, I've always just been like into something kind of like creepy, cute. Like when Melanie Martinez came out, I was like, this is everything I want to be. Like the kind of dark destruction of like childhood and things. And I really like that creepy vibe. Like I feel like it's really nice for like trauma. And then I did a couple of like indie shorts myself as like an actor, and I loved horror because it was just you screaming covered in blood, which was so therapeutic in ways like I don't even know if I could get people comprehend. And I've always like I'm like terrified of horror movies. They mess my sleep up. I have nightmares. I fully believe in demons and ghosts. I went to New Orleans. I have seen. So I like love them, but I fear them.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. Um, Love for me is such a strong word when it comes to the horror genre. It's not that I don't love it. It's I grew up disliking it for so long and that it was hard for me to kind of compute. But when I started seeing like Jordan Peele making the transition from comedy to horror, I started watching more horror comedies. That I think that was kind of the bridge that I needed, because comedy and horror are basically the same thing. You're building, you're building, you're building, and then boom, it's a punchline in comedy, or it's a scare in horror, and it's the same thing. So wrapping my head around that process, it gave me more of a respect for the horror genre, especially the people who go just diving into it are crazy, crazy creative. And I think I guess it's not love that I have for the horror genre, it's definitely respect.
Sometimes they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah,
could
I
be.
think
Yeah.
comedy is so much in a good horror film for sure. So since you've been the filmmaker for longer, I'm like new filmmaker.
Hmm.
What made you want to be a filmmaker?
So it started off initially writing when I was a kid. I would, just write little bits, and I would act things out in my head. I was very much one of those kids who, when he had his toys, he like acted out stories with them. So, I've been a storyteller since day one. But as far as getting into filmmaking, it was Kevin Smith's Clerks that really did it for me, where it was just this guy, he made a movie with his friends, and he had a great time with it. He got into a lot of debt, but it worked out for him. So that's kind of how I've always wanted to do it. It's this little community of people just getting together, telling a story, trying to make it as fun as possible. Even if it's serious subject matter, you still want to have fun with it. So that's kind of where I began with it. Okay.
So I wanted to be a filmmaker kind of accidentally because I was making like my own films, but I didn't really understand that they were films or like realizing that I was putting together like editing and directing and things. And then eventually I'm an actor first. And so all of these scripts just sucked. And I just kept reading terrible, terrible writing. And I was like, I know I can write better than this. And we had met through school, me and Alvaro, and I was just like, why don't we just put a production company together and like make the content that I want to see? Because I was so just tired of waiting for someone to hand it to me that
Hmm.
because it didn't seem like it was happening. And also, like, I'm kind of an unusual character. So people, that's not what they're thinking of when they're like casting and stuff. So I was like, well, instead of me waiting for other people to give me my power, why don't I just take it and do it and tell the stories that I want to tell and have fun on sets and run them the way that I think they should be run. And yeah, we've
Hmm.
been doing that. Just somewhat success for our very first year. I feel like we've learned a lot and grown, but yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I wanted to be a filmmaker because everybody else sucked. Which is not true. There's obviously lots of talented people, but I saw a way it could be better and I was like, well, I want to do it that way then.
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, so
So
the
how, yeah,
story of Paul Hogs the Bathroom was, I would say it's an interesting one.
it's a fun one. So, as I was an actor, I had a bunch of these. Like, I used to do theater first. That's where all the greats start, obviously. And I had a bunch of these monologues of just like scenes that I thought were funny. And so when we first began, we were still in the pandemic, and I was like, well, let's pick some like one scene, like one location scenes that we could do to like improve ourselves as filmmakers and like get used to the process and learn and grow and have like material. So we picked this monologue because you have a lot of like sibling rivalry, right?
Yeah, yeah, I got a brother and a sister. So I grew growing up, I had to deal with a lot of the back and forth and the fighting and the arguing. So I was very much in depth, inbred into this sibling rivalry story.
Yeah, I am separated from all my siblings, like, because I have a very wild family past. So, like, I love my siblings dearly, actually so much that I put one in the movie. But anyway, um, so I was like, okay, so we had this thing that this was the interest peaked, and so we took like that monologue as an inspiration, and then we went wild with it.
Hmm.
Um, because I was like, because it did not end, the original monologue did not end like that, but we always like to like take because I read that book Great Artists Steal, and I 100% believe that. So
Tarantino.
yeah, we just took that like took that inspiration, but I wanted to give it like a different ending because I thought it was like, and I did not think that Alvaro was going to go from this because he's not a horror person, but I was like, wouldn't it be funny if the sister just like stabbed her brother? Like it was just like that's it. Like I'm just so done. Like because it seems like such a petty reason to stab somebody,
Hmm.
and I was like, that's comedy, right? The unexpected. And we had just made Mr. Tarantino, which is this other horror film, um, where Mr. Tarantino possesses the spirit of this boyfriend and becomes like foot obsessed. We're obviously interested in making
Yeah.
weird things, if you cannot
Mhm.
tell.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, we could kind of establish ourselves as this like sort of genre horror, and we're working on doing like a female werewolf movie right now too. So I was like, so if we added this horror element, that would be cool because that's and also like we'd learn like how do you do a stab wound, right? And what are like the
Hmm.
mechanics of filmmaking and that. And then I didn't think you were gonna go for it, but then
I mean, you didn't pitch it as, it wasn't originally pitched as a horror thing, and I think
yeah.
just the, again, like having siblings and knowing what it's like being pushed to that point where you just like, I just just want to, and so it played out in my head, and I thought it was hilarious because like I've been in those moments, but then in actually filming it and the way we were doing it and playing with the colors of the scene and the sound design of the scene, the horror came out and it felt very natural. So it wasn't that again, it didn't get pitched as anything horror related, and I think that's why I was able to gravitate towards it. But I think just in the way it was just naturally filmed, and the way it was, you and your brother acting opposite each other, and the way it came off, horror came out, and it was great, and it felt so on point. And so that's kind of why we're here. It worked out.
Yay. Okay, so what was the most challenging and the most rewarding while filming this project?
So I think in terms of the most challenging, I would probably have to say the travel, because we didn't film it here. We didn't film it in LA. We filmed it in Rochester, New York. So that was a first for me. It's the first time I've ever, traveled to film something. There were just logistic things, but obviously, the most rewarding thing is, we're here. We got nominated for stuff. So I think, it paid out. What about you?
Oh, the most challenging was absolutely the towel. That towel not it does not work. I probably should have had like better like support to do it or like taped it somehow, but obviously
Hmm.
we were traveling. We had never really done like a towel scene with that. So like
Yeah.
on my thing I would and I'm sure in editing it that towel was like a different way every time because it would constantly fall down like right before I was supposed to come out and I'd have to like rewrap it really
Rewrap it. Yep.
quickly. And it was always like we filmed it a little separate from my brother. Like we did all my brother's scenes separately and then my scenes there because of like
Hmm.
pandemic and scheduling and everything. So that was at least good. Like when it did fall down inappropriately, it wasn't like also embarrassingly in front of my brother. Definitely challenging,
Yeah.
but we worked through it. But the most rewarding was because I had my brother has never really acted before, except like when I was doing improv when he was like we have like a 9 years age difference. So he was 9 and I or like and I was no, he was like younger. He was like 6. I was like 13. Anyway, he was like baby and I was teenager and he would come to like crash my improv courses and he would like think he was so funny. He was, but he was a kid. And he
Hmm.
still like went for it. But other than that, he had never done any acting and anything. So I was a bit worried, like, because I kept trying to like look for a brother, but I was like, well, this is my actual brother, so that makes sense in terms of casting, even though I know we look different. We have different dads. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I did not know if he was going to be good, but it was like really cool when he like showed up and
Yeah.
like could actually do it. And it was like, oh, like that's awesome. Because I was so worried we were gonna have to like coach him and that we would run out of time and that
Hmm.
it wouldn't be like or that we like couldn't get the performance that worked, but there was really something really like sunny about him and stuff. So that was pretty rewarding. I was like, oh, I guess like this talent runs in the family. And my mom, who was like off screen, is like because she wanted to stay and watch the process, even though she had to work. She totally played hooky to be on a film set. So it's fine. But she was like, yeah, I knew he was gonna be good because he had to be loud when he was like the quarterback of the football team. And I also think it's rewarding, like I basically Finn gleed him. Like I got the sports guy to be an actor, so I feel proud about that. um,
Amazing.
all right, so which horror movies are your favorite?
Um, it's not a lot, but I think probably top of the list for me is Scream. It's the whole subversion of the genre. So there's a lot of comedic elements to it, and I love Nev Campbell, and I think just the whole story is great. And Wes Craven, you can't go wrong with Wes Craven. Wes Craven was a freaking genius. R.I.P.
He's really good. Have you ever seen the movie where he does with Eddie Murphy as a vampire? Wild one. Honestly, one of Eddie Murphy's
Uh,
best acting performances.
I've
Vampires in
never
Brooklyn.
I've never seen it. I know
It's a
of it,
wild
but
one.
never seen it. Vampires in
That's definitely not my favorite. It has a lot of problems. I'm reviewing it, but yeah. So my favorite horror movie of all time is The Uninvited, which has Emily Browning in it, and it's based on this like Korean one, and I really like it. I love horrors that have like a psychological twist and go into like mental
Brooklyn.
illness, but the first Quiet Place was great. Second Quiet Place, I really like a lot of like horror shows too.
Hmm.
I like a lot of the American Horror Stories. I really appreciated Cult was I think my favorite American
Yeah.
Horror Story, and I like the second one at the mental hospital obviously because I'm a big mental health advocate. And yeah, I like appreciate a lot of like the Haunting of Hill House's stuff. I think like the horror as like a TV show thing really works and is super exciting and would be
I
super
mean,
fun to like act in too.
just
Yeah.
kind of bouncing off, horror TV. Supernatural's one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, obviously, it lost a lot of its horror bit as it went on, but like at beginning, the first few seasons, holy crap, it scared the hell out of me.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer
I
slays
love
to this day.
Buffy,
So,
but
yeah,
love Buffy the
Buffy was.
Vampire.
I would not be in this business if it wasn't for Buffy. Honestly, I have at one point I had a Buffy shrine, so that's like a big one. But the Buffy
Wow.
movie, not as great. But
Yeah,
another good
no.
horror movie
But
is
also, it's
the
one of
book is
those
so
things.
hollow.
If the movie didn't exist, there wouldn't be a TV show.
It's very very true. But yeah, thanks for having us so much. These
Thank
were
you.
such fun questions. I hope you liked our babbling answers.
And thank you for the nomination. And we can't wait to see our film again on during your festival.
Yeah, so cool. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.